Amy Khan here for Seconds Out. Pleasure to be in the company of once again, albeit via the method of computer and internet, with Duke McKenzie, MBE, former three-weight world champion Duke McKenzie, of course, who was watching Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn, the rematch and revenge for Conor Benn, who nearly stopped his rival and foe Eubank Jr. in the latter rounds. Duke, what did you see take place last night?
Yeah, I want to congratulate Conor Benn, first of all, for what can only be considered to be a good performance on his part. But he clearly beat a weight-drained Eubank Jr. I know I've been in that exact same position where you drag to make weight for weeks, for months, don't eat the right foods, don't drink the right drinks because you're dragging to make weight to get weight off. When Eubank got in there last night, he looked decimated. And like I say, you take your hat off to Conor Benn because he just went out and did a job on him. I feel a little bit sorry for Eubank because he lied to himself. He's clearly lied to himself in thinking he could make the weight, and it doesn't matter how bad he was going to be or what shape he was in, that he would have enough to beat, Conor Benn. Or he wouldn't have beaten anybody last night. Anybody would have beaten him last night. He was that bad. It wasn't a great fight to watch. It was quite a laboured, boring fight to watch, because you sense that at any point, for 6-7 rounds, Eubank did absolutely nothing except hold his hands up. He wasn't really offering any sort of there was no real aggression, there was no setup, there was no combinations. I'm not saying he does that normally in fights, but that's what you would expect given what he said he was going to do. So, like I say, it was a lacklustre performance by Eubank. Benn's got the win. Eubank will have to live with the fact now he's lost to his nemesis, and it happens, but he's got 10 million for his troubles. The problem with that is £10 million can't buy your health. And in the years to come, the amount of times that boy's dragged to do weight, he's got away with it up until now. If you look at the shot that he went over with from Conor Benn, bearing in mind, Conor Benn is a career best welterweight, 10 stone 7, 147, right? He's been bounced around the ring by a little man, and which will tell you yet again his punch resistance has gone. So it's not a good look, is it?
You mentioned in there, of course, so fighting at the lightweights, winning world titles at the lightweights, and yourself making weight throughout your career. Eubank Jr. mentioned in the press conference he's been to hell and back. What does that mean in the context of making weight through the weeks leading up to the fight and in the week? What does that mean to your mind state, to your body, how you feel? Can you let the listeners know what that actually means for a fighter when they're trying to make that weight and getting there to fight now?
Well, if you can imagine, you go to bed 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, and you're hungry, just hungry, physically hungry because you haven't had enough to eat, but you're trying to sleep on an empty stomach. So you can't sleep because you're so hungry, but you can't get up in the middle of the night and have a sandwich and a Coke and a packet of crisps or whatever. You can't eat anything, so you have to suffer that. That becomes like mental torture, because we're only human, and if we function as a normal human being, the most natural thing for any man to do is to eat when they're hungry. Now, when you have to restrict yourself from all the foods that you love and all the fluid that you need to function properly, so then you get up the next morning and you go out and you do a little, 4, 5, 6 mile run because you're making weight. That run it's torturous. It's horrible. You can't eat because you're so weak. You can't run fast because you're weak. But your body adjusts to that state over a period of time, but you don't get any stronger on it. As each day goes by, you get a little bit weaker and a little bit weaker, to a point where you even walk slower than what you normally do, not through choice, because your body just won't allow you to pick up the pace and just walk quickly. All your reactions start to slow down, and it's a horrible experience for anybody. I wouldn't wish it on anybody, boxer or non-boxer. And like I say, when I saw Eubank get into that ring last night, I thought he would win last night. I thought he'd have just enough left to beat a welterweight. But the reality is he had nothing left, and the welterweight beat him. So Eubank now, he will suffer as a direct result from dragging to do weight. Let's just hope there's no long-term damage done. But the long-term damage won't be known for another 5-6 years down the line. It won't even kick in for another 5-6 years down the line. You don't know the long-term damage. I don't know if you've ever gone a whole day Aman, without drinking and eating the foods that you like and what you love. Just try it for a day and see how that makes you feel. Then try it for 2 days. I bet you couldn't get through a week of just living on maybe 2 meals a day, maybe like 800 calories per meal a day for a week. I bet you couldn't do it, mate.
I'd love to try. I've done something similar with the training that I do at Kraken's gym down in Birmingham with making weight and trying to go on a boxer's diet. But I'd love to go on a strict camp and get that kind of insight and feel it for myself in the future.
Yeah.
But you mentioned about Eubank Jr., how this will affect him 5 years down the line. I don't know if he'll still be in the ring 5 years down the line. But what about in the short term when it comes to if he does get back into the ring and wants the fights with Canelo's or others or tries to go for the title?
Sorry, we have to stop that. Because we have to shut that down straight away. He can't fight a bona fide middleweight, super middleweight, because he doesn't have the class, but B, he's just proven how weak he is at that weight. He is not strong at 160. And it wouldn't make any difference at 168. I've tried it myself. So I'm speaking from experience. It's not something I've read in the book. I'm speaking from experience. You cannot, once you've dragged to make weight, you're never quite the same. Then you think, so, you know what, I can move up in weight, put on 3 or 4 pounds. I'll be a little bit stronger, which is what I tried to do initially. When I lost my first world championship, I thought, you know what, I need a few more pounds. I'll move up to super flyweight, which is another 3 or 4 pounds. Once I put on that 3 or 4 pounds of natural body fat, it made no difference whatsoever. And that's why my initial jump was to bantamweight, where I was half a stone heavier. But I was a young man then. Eubank is an old man. He's 36 years of age. So even if he jumps up to 168, or the middleweight limit or whatever it is, he's not going to be that. He's not going to be any stronger. You're not going to see a better performance from him. So, imagine what Shiraz would do to Eubank, or what Canelo, even though Canelo's faded and washed up, what he would do to Eubank. For my money, Eubank's best days are clearly gone. The days of him beating the likes of James DeGale, they're gone. Arthur Abraham, they're gone. Those days are gone. What we're seeing now is a faded, used, washed up. I don't use that term lightly, but that's what he is. It's over now. And if you look back to when his dad first made the statement, he didn't want his son to fight at this weight division. His son should have listened to him. The reason being is his dad's been in that position and is a voice of authority on making weight and what it is to do 12 rounds. It's okay to make the weight. You can struggle and to make weight. And you think to yourself, I've got 12 hours or whatever it is, or 20 hours to put the weight back on. You can eat and drink normally, but it takes several days for the weight to get back into your system where you start to feel strong again. You can't do it overnight, quite literally.
Okay, then in response to that, Duke, I would ask, is the trade worth it when it comes to a boxer's career? The many millions on the line. There's an old statement of, you can't use your world titles to pay for your groceries. Is the trade for someone like Eubank Jr., who maybe isn't going to win a world title, who isn't going to get to those highs of the sport, worth it? Spend that, you risk that little bit of health to make your money, make your career, and solidify yourself and your family for the future, and essentially shorten your boxing career in the wake of that. Is that trade worth it, you feel, in this instance?
Well, you know what? We're all greedy. You, me, we're all greedy. If somebody dangles the right carrot in front of you for enough money, you're going to make the sacrifice. So I'm not going to say I wouldn't do it for 10 million. I would, but people have different motives for doing different things. Eubank's motive for making the weight, maybe he was looking at legacy in his children. He's a father now. He's going to be a father soon to a couple of twins, I'm told. So maybe he's thinking about their future. Maybe he's thinking about setting them up long term. It's a very foolish thing to do. It is, but you only feel foolish after the event, because when you get that check, you become alive again and you feel great about yourself. But like I say, we don't know the long term damage which has been done to Eubank, whether that be physical or psychologically. There's going to be some kind of payback. Trust me on this one. I hope I'm wrong. And all I know is the way boxing scarred me mentally, psychologically, is my career's been over for a long time. As far back as I can't even remember how long. But I go to bed now every night. Ask my wife, she'll tell you. I go to bed every night with a drink and a Mars bar or a bit of chocolate or a couple of biscuits. If I wake up in the middle of the night, the first thing I do is reach over, grab the Mars bar or the chocolate, I have a drink, and I go back to sleep. I'm like a child in that respect. That's how boxing scarred me. I have to be eating. I eat all the time. Ask anybody that knows me. I'm constantly grazing. People say, where'd you put the food? But that's because I've had a long career. I might be one of the lucky ones that's got out the other side, and that's my only problem. I don't know if there's any long-term damage. I can only hope that there's no long-term damage. But for Eubank, where he's been doing it probably as long as me, or if not longer now, it's not good. And, you know, money can't buy your health. 10 million, I think he got for that fight. That's great money. Unbelievable money. And I'm sure there's not a fighter or a human being on this planet that wouldn't do what he's done to get that kind of money. But like I say, it all boils down to greed.
Love to have that future conversation about you and your career and the aftermath on another day, Duke, and I'm sure we will have that conversation. But last thing on Eubank before I focus on Ben is, don't want to put words in your mouth, but do you feel that's the final time we should see Eubank Jr. in the ring?
I hope he never fights again. Again, Eubank Sr. said this a long time ago. He wanted his son to retire, walk away from the sport. He's wealthy enough, and you know what? He's got enough rings. He's got enough smarts about him. He's a very intelligent young man, Eubank Jr. But he won't listen to anybody because he wants to be his own man. You know, which is quite sad, really. You know, when you're in any profession, you should always listen to a voice of reason. And if that voice of reason is coming from a parent, particularly who's done exactly what you've done, who's walked that line, who has that experience, surely to God you should listen. He may not be lucky next time, even if he moves up to super middleweight and boxes someone. Oh God, I don't even want to fight. Talk about Shiraz or Canelo or any of the other beasts that are out there in the super middleweight division. That boy could get seriously hurt. And the long-term damage, there's no amount of money you could pay to buy his health. So, you know, like I said, the fight itself was such a letdown. It was terrible. It was, you know, what really surprised me was how White took Conor Benn so long to get Eubank out of there. Like we said, he boxed to a game plan. He boxed to a strategy. He had a strategy. He had this game plan. You can feel from the first round just how strong your opponent is, you know, physically, by the sting in their punches. Conor Benn, I don't think he took a punch in anger till about the 7th round, 8th round. He never took a clean shot. There was nothing really to suggest that Eubank was going to cause him any kind of a problem. Like I say, it was such a lackluster performance by Eubank. It was a poor fight to watch. I know several people that were calling me up in the middle of the night saying how rubbish they thought it was. And I mean, it is what it is. It is what it is. That's the world of entertainment that we live in.
What about the future for Conor Benn, who, off the back of this Eubank Jr. Revenge, he said he doesn't want to continue the rivalry anymore for a third one, and he also says he wants to go back down to 147. So he's now going back down to a weight he hasn't fought in a couple of years now, to take on world champions the likes of Mario Barras, fight Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney, Brian Norman, if it's to be, etc. What about Conor Benn's prospects of looking for a world title?
Yeah, he's delusional. He's delusional. I've never known, and I'm sure you couldn't tell me, one single fighter in the history of the sport of boxing that's gone up in weight and then gone down in weight. Not one weight division, 2 weight divisions he's talking, dropping back down to his what he calls his natural weight division. I don't think he's boxed at actually 147 for a number of years now, Conor Benn. He's not going to drop back down to 147 and have a successful career at 147. He'd be lucky if he can make 154, the light middleweight division. I don't think he can make any of those weights successfully and be strong. So now he finds himself in that same position that Eubank found himself in he may have to drag to do weight, and you're not going to get the best out of Conor Benn. I still don't believe Conor Benn's a world-class fighter, but that's just my own personal opinion, having been a world champion. I don't see him as a world-class fighter, but he's a very proud man, and he thinks that he is by beating Eubank, who hasn't been a world champion. So I don't really know where Conor Benn's future lies. All I do know is both of these boxers are genuine boxers. Both of these boxers have made a bucket load of money, and I wouldn't even be surprised if I hope Eubank Jr. I hope he retires from the sport. And I'd like to see Conor Benn walk away from the sport with his health and his wealth. He's a very wealthy man now. All boxers get into the sport of boxing for two things: to become champions and to earn a bucket load of cash. If you can't do the first, then you want the second, which is earning a bucket load of cash, which Conor Benn and Eubank have both done. So they should both quit.
Just a quick word on, I don't know if you caught it, any of the undercard, specifically Adam Azim, who once again marches up the ladder and looks really good, patient, and Peachaba 1-2 to get Scobie to crash into the canvas, and then took his time but found the shots to stop Scobie, as well as Catchall versus Esselman, which was back and forth but led to Jack Catchall stopping Echo Esselman, who looked very in a concerning state after that fight. But what took your eye from the undercard, if you caught it?
The Azim fight, for me, you know, he's a pure boxer and he's nice to watch, very easy on the eye, never rushes his work, well schooled, patient. You know, I mean, that little man that he boxed the other night could have given him a lot of problems, but he broke him down round after round. Really impressive body shots, lovely jabs, good speed, held his shape throughout the whole of the fight from first to last. So he's definitely one for the future. He's probably on the verge of a world title fight. He's only 1 or 2 fights away, surely. And I think he's got a good chance of becoming a world champion, given what he's shown last night. You know, when you're a professional fighter and you're world class and you get a potential banana skin, as that fight was last night. But when you're world class and you know what you're looking at, and you can break that guy down slowly but surely, which he did last night, it was nice to watch. Like I say, it's quite easy on the eye. He didn't rush anything, picked some good jabs, beautiful body shots. Even when he had the other guy hurt, he didn't run in and try to finish him off, which was just pretty cool. Went back to doing what he should do, just picked him apart with the jabs and just kept setting him up. So I like it. He's a nice fighter.
Very lastly, we might be on the verge of two things. First of all, finally seeing Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua square up in a ring in September of next year. If Turki Sheikh's announcement was teaser announcement was to be anything to go by, as Anthony Joshua returns to the ring in February next year on a Riyadh season card. But also the news is that we might be seeing Anthony Joshua take on Jake Paul in not an exhibition, but a fight as well too before the close of the year. How do you feel about that fight if we do indeed get it?
I hope the fight does happen. Anthony Joshua might pick up 50 million, 60 million, however millions it is, for fighting a guy that clearly can't fight. When you've lost in a major world title fight, if you're a boxer, as Anthony Joshua is, your promoter then says to yourself, how do I bring my protege back? How do I get him back into world-class contention? I'm not suggesting that Jake Paul's world-class for any minute. I'm not suggesting that. But what I'm saying is he's a soft touch. He's waiting to get knocked out. So the promoter says to himself, right, he scratches his head and says, you know what, I need to get my fighter a couple of easy ones just to get his confidence back so he can bring him back to the fore, bring him back to everybody's imagination. Everybody sees him knocking somebody out, looking good doing it. So this guy's made for Anthony Joshua. It'll be another Ngannou early night for Joshua where he gets a little bit of confidence. I don't know where Joshua goes with it after that because it's only going to be a 2 or 3 round fight at best. And where he goes from after that, I don't know. But right now, Anthony Joshua needs to get his confidence back. So this is the perfect fight for him. Anybody that criticises him or says he shouldn't do it, if they had a 50 million plus check waved under their nose and they're going to say, no, I'm not going to do it, they're liars. And they're lying to themselves, they're lying to everybody else. Everybody's got their price. I wish they'd offered me 50 million to fight Jake Paul because I'd snatch their arm off. Listen, I'd convince you and the whole country and the whole world I could beat Jake Paul. In the first round, bang, I'm going over because I want that 50 million. I want to spend it wisely. You see what I mean? So, you know, I mean, everyone's got their price. Everybody's got their price. I don't care who it is. Even King Kong has got a price. And it's ridiculous for anybody to even say he shouldn't be fighting Jake Paul. Because if nothing else, Jake Paul brings eyes to the sport of boxing. He's incredibly popular. He's the kind of guy you'd want to fight. I'm not even so sure why there's not a list of guys queuing up to fight him. But you know, Jake Paul's a little bit foolhardy because one minute he's fighting a little midget in Tank Davis, who's 5'4", who's only a career best lightweight. Now he's calling out a former world champion who's 18 stone plus, right? Who's a man mountain, who actually can fight. I don't know where the logic is in that. But all I do know is we've got a lot of fantasists in this world, and there's a lot of fantasists in the sport of boxing. And I don't know, I genuinely fear, like most people do, for Jake Paul, because if he fights Anthony Joshua, it's not going to end well.
Right now, it still seems to be a little bit more than just fantasies, they seem to be closing on a deal. We'll wait and see what happens in this new week coming forward, whether the fight does materialize and the press conference is arranged. But Duke, I appreciate you taking the time out of your Sunday to speak to me once again. I'll let you get on, but once again, thanks for the great conversation.
Yeah, you're more than welcome, man. Have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you again, Chan. Thank you.
Much appreciated.